Overreactions here on the Field of 68 Media Network. It is Sunday night, January 3rd. I hope everybody had a healthy and happy new year. My name is Rob Dauster. The other gentleman that you see there with me, of course, is Da'Sean Butler, former West Virginia All-American and current co-host of mine. Da'Sean, how are you doing, man? How was your new year? Did you get wild and rowdy? Were you up until 5 o'clock in the morning partying again?
No, that's not my life anymore. But I had a good time, man. The kids actually hung out a little bit longer than I did. I was knocked out. I sent my messages and it's like Happy New Year right around like 12 o'clock, and I passed out around like 12:45.
Yeah, I was out by like I think like 11:15 or 11:30. Like I threw on Borat, right? Which was first, like I thought it was going to be a funny movie. It was not.
Newer one you talking about?
Yeah, it was not funny.
Yeah,
there was one like legit laugh out loud scene. But like it was I was just kind of like this is so awkward and cringeworthy, and I don't know. I thought I would like it. Didn't do it for me this time, man. Didn't do it for me.
It happens.
We have you're telling me. We have a lot to get to this weekend. It was probably, I think Saturday was probably the craziest day of college basketball that we've had yet this year. And then, of course, Michigan, we just watched them put a whipping on Northwestern and kind of set some haters straight. But before we get into all of that, I did want to address something. I saw some criticism over the weekend as there were a bunch of games and a little bit of an uptick of games that were being postponed and being canceled. And presumably that is due to the fact that there were players that went home for the holidays to see their family. And there was a little bit more travel outside of kind of the teams and like the daily circle. And some of these kids, like they just needed a circuit breaker, so to speak, to kind of reset them on what has been a trying season or a trying year or whatever it is. And to a point, I understand why there are going to be people that are upset about this. As a nation, we were told to stay home during the holidays, to cancel our family get-togethers, to avoid large gatherings, to avoid big parties, to avoid traveling across the country. Don't spend time indoors with people that aren't in your daily circle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how this virus spreads. We all know this. This is not new information.
That's true.
And the fact that people did not necessarily abide by these rules during Thanksgiving is part of the reason why, some of our hospitals are hitting capacity. We're running out of ventilators and we're running out of ICU space. It's not a good situation that we're in right now. So I get why people would be mad about the travel and about some of these players, leaving their I guess controlled environment is the buzzword that we want to use for this. But at the same time, like, these college basketball players right now are not normal people, if that makes sense. We're asking them to spend every day inside in large numbers practicing with their teams. We're asking them to travel around the country twice a week to go and play basketball against other groups of people that spend every day inside practicing against each other. Right? You're not supposed to get together in large groups. And we have groups of 25 that are getting together to play against each other. Basketball is not like, there's no social distancing in basketball unless like you're trying to guard Marcus Carr step back, then, there's going to be 6 feet of distance between you and him. But for the most part, like you got guys setting screens against each other and boxing each other out and going like chest to chest. There's no social distancing on a basketball court. And we're asking these players in the middle of a pandemic where 360-something thousand people have died to do this as unpaid amateurs that are playing these games because the people and the entities that make all of the money off of their labor need that income to be able to survive. That we have deemed college basketball players as essential workers, more or less. That's what we're doing. And they have, as a result, had to spend like 5 or 6 months living in like some level of isolation. There are teams that are staying in hotels because they don't want to let these kids be on the campus. There are players that I know of that have spent like 7 weeks in quarantine dealing with some of the rules that you have to be able to play and be a part of a team and contact tracing and all of that. If we're going strictly by the numbers, it's probably riskier for these players to go out and play in the game, let alone go and have a practice, right? So to see them go and visit their families in a situation where like you have to kind of hope that these families are being conscientious about the exposure that they have, which I mean is no guarantee, but that's the kind of thing that like we have to accept. Like these are 18 to 21-year-old kids that are not robots, that are not professionals even. And given what we are asking them to do and the compensation that they are getting for it, if the people that are with them every day think that they need a little bit of a break from this reality for their own mental health. And if going home for a couple days relieves some of the stress that they're under, like, I'm not going to be the guy that is going to sit here and take shots at them for it. If it costs us a couple of games here or there in the schedule, if things got to get postponed, if things got to get canceled, like, whatever, this season's already weird enough as it is. What's another canceled or postponed game? You have to trust that everyone is going to be as smart and as safe as they possibly can be. And if anybody does happen to test positive when they go home, we limit the spread wherever they end up going to next. But I'm not going to sit here and be the guy that is taking shots at kids that just need a break from what the grind that they've been on for the last 5 or 6 months to like go home. Like for the most part, probably just drive 6 hours home to see their family for a day and then drive back to school. Like that's, to me, if that's what you're doing, you just got to hope that everyone is being smart and safe. And from there, like, I'm not going to be the guy that takes shots at anybody for doing that. I had to get, I'm stepping off my soapbox now. Okay. I had to get that off of my chest, Da'Sean, but go ahead.
I understand. No, trust me. I'm with you. I was curious, were these people attacking the players and the coaches for basketball reasons, or were they attacking these individuals for safety reasons? Just curious.
All of the above. It's like, you can't do this. We're not supposed to be traveling. We're not supposed to have this kind of spread. Like, this is how you make the virus worse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, none of them, it's not like they're wrong, right? It's not like what they're saying is incorrect factually, but you can't take what you're saying here out of the context of what these kids and players are dealing with, right? There's nothing that we do right now is going to be safe. Like, the simple fact that we're playing college basketball games
is one of the unsafest things we could do. Traveling and playing is unsafe. Like,
it's completely against any kind of COVID regulations and COVID protocols that we have. So as long as you're saying, like, okay, we're going to keep doing this, but you are not allowed to go see your parents if you want to go see your parents. Like, what the fuck is that, man?
It's very strange. And what I would say is people should shift their gears on who they are angry at. I mean, these are students that are playing. I mean, there's some schools they're not even allowing their students on campus. So they have, like, they're having classes online, but for some reason their players have to be on campus and they have to play and they have to travel and they have to do these things. And I can't say have to, because you don't really have to, but I mean, we all, like, it's almost like the coach is saying, all right, this isn't mandatory to come here in the summer.
Well,
and everybody's there.
The other part of it.
It's not mandatory, but like, what do you expect to happen to these guys that don't decide not to play? They did this big thing today. Oh, such and such decided it wasn't healthy for him to play, and the coach totally agree with them. And it's like, all right, cool, but then what? Will he get would he get recruited over? Will he not have the same opportunity as the guys that have decided to play? Like, there's tons and tons of things that go into this stuff for these kids. And for people to attack the easiest people to reach is very weak. I mean, it's not up to the players at the end of the day. And it's really not even up to all of the coaches, in a sense, like universities, the NCAA. You can attack those individuals. You shouldn't be attacking the players.
Yeah, I'm with you. The last thing that I just want to say on this, and then we can move on, is that, like, San Jose State played Boise State twice this weekend in, like, the Mountain West game. The Mountain West has the schedule where they're playing 2 conference games at each site each weekend to try to minimize the amount of
numerous teams are doing that.
Yeah, lots of leagues are. It's a smart way to kind of limit the amount that these guys are spending in airports, the amount that they're spending on planes, the time they're spending in planes, all that kind of stuff. But, like, San Jose State is not allowed to, like, practice on their campus right now in that county because of COVID restrictions that are being put in place. So they played in, like, a rec center. Right? There was literally the game was supposed to be televised, but they couldn't televise the game because there was no setup for the TV. There was literally, like, one camera that they had to be able to make sure that, like, you could put the film up on Synergy. That's what there was. Like, that's all there was. And, like, that's what we're worried about. New Mexico and New Mexico State are practicing in fucking Arizona because they're not allowed to play in New Mexico. And you're going to be mad that, like, these kids that they're completely uprooting their lives to try to play this game are going to drive home to see their families. Like, it's like, there's lots of things to be mad about in this situation. These kids need, like, a mental health break to go see their families.
Is the last thing. That should be the last thing. That shouldn't even be on the list.
I get it. Trust me, I understand how it's problematic, but like everything is problematic these days. And like I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I just don't know. I don't know what else to do, man. I am at my wit's end. All right, we are going to get into some overreactions. Before we do, I do have to let you guys know really quick about our partners over at Manscaped. To anybody out there, to all the gentlemen out there that have ever had any issues when they were cleaning up their below the waist area, if anybody that's ever nicked something they didn't want to nick when they were trying to trim hair in places they didn't want to have hair, to all the ladies that are listening to this podcast and watching this show that have men in your life that have struggled with these issues, that have struggled with these problems, that have needed you to help them put alcohol on areas that you don't want to be putting alcohol on, to help them with incidents when it comes to trimming the hair down there, do we have an answer for you. It is the Lawnmower 3.0 from our partners over at Manscaped. They are here to save your boys from taking on a double team of nagging defenders so you can stay clean and take care of yourself where it matters the most. Trust me, I've been using it. It's great. It's very easy. You do not nick anything. The Lawnmower 3.0 is here to sink the competition and deliver the best tools for your family jewels. That's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created, and they just released the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer. It is simply the best hygiene tool for the modern man. Because of the ceramic blade and the skin-safe technology, your snags will be reduced. Trust me, they have been. Their Perfect Package 3.0 comes with the new and improved Lawnmower waterproof, cordless body trimmer, which allows you to be able to trim in the shower. You get performance boxer briefs, and you get a travel bag to use for when we're done quarantining and we can actually go out to places other than our houses and our apartment. The Perfect Package 3.0 also comes with the Crop Preserver and the Crop Reviver. Crop Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant, which ensures that your afternoon stroll does not end with your balls getting stuck to your leg, because every guy knows that is the absolute worst thing in the entire world to have happen. The Crop Reviver is a spray-on toner for your balls. It's made with soothing aloe and witch hazel extracts that gives your balls a boost. And trust me, it makes them feel very nice. So you get 20% off and free shipping with the code CATS, that's CATS, at manscaped.com, because it's a whole new balls game. Take advantage of this limited time offer from Manscaped's all-star lineup and try it yourself. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code CATS, CATS, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com if you use the code CATS, CATS. When things get hairy in the fourth quarter, make sure to call on Manscaped in clutch time. And we're done.
Cats? Where did cats come from?
There you go. There you go.
Shout out to Manscaped. They're out here doing things.
Shout out to Manscaped.
They're doing things.
And what my segue here was going to be was that ad was talking about removing hair. And now we're going to talk about the man with the greatest hairdo in college basketball, and that's Shaka Smart. But before we do that, we just watched Michigan beat the hell out of Northwestern. I don't even know what the final score was. I stopped paying attention when they were up 25 early in the second half. Yeah. And it just kind of begs the question, like, I think that we need to reevaluate a little bit who the best team in the Big Ten is. Specifically, like, we need to start having the conversation of whether or not Michigan actually is the best team in the Big Ten. And since this is the Monday Overreactions podcast, what I will say to you is right now, Da'Sean, I am not ready to say that Michigan is the best team in the Big Ten, but Michigan can absolutely win the conference regular season title and win the conference tournament title. They can do both of those things. I'm not saying that they are going to, but they absolutely have the team to do that.
They have the team to. We can't negate that. They have a great coach. I just feel like the sample size is too small to even jump on the boat of them winning the Big Ten. Like, it's still early for me. And we've seen a lot of the Big Ten, the other teams in the Big Ten, play against some competition, win some big games. We just watched Iowa go into the rack and come out with a win. We just watched Kofi Coburn go and play what's my guy Travion Williams, big man battle, and watch Illinois come out with a win against a solid Purdue team. Like there's still some more we need to see of Michigan playing in the Big Ten. But if anything was if it was a show that they wanted to put on, they did today. A Northwestern team that they've beaten 2 ranked teams already. They got 2 ranked teams under their belt, and they're a very well coached team. And I mean, Michigan didn't care about any of those things, so they went out there and dogged them.
Yeah. So there were 2 things that really stood out to me about this matchup. One is that, like on the surface, this was kind of this was the team that probably could take down Michigan, just from the sense that, like, when you have like Hunter Dickinson is not like, he's really, really good, and we're going to talk about him later. Yeah, but he's not exactly the most fleet of foot guy, right? Yeah. And so, like, the thinking is, when you're going up against a team that really wants to spread the floor like Northwestern does, you're going to force him to have to go out and guard on the perimeter. And it at the start, like, that kind of did happen a little bit. I think it was Robbie Barron beat him off the dribble once, and Northwestern I think they jumped out to like a 10-2 lead, and Pete Nance had 8 of those 10 points. But then from there, like, Michigan made their adjustments and completely shut Northwestern down, and it was a wrap. Like, it was over. They scored. Man, I don't even know what the run was, but it was ridiculous. They outscored him by like 30 points over the next 20 minutes. Yeah. And I mean, look, Hunter Dickinson is really, really good, but I think the guy that we really need to talk about here is Franz Wagner, because, the Isaiah Livers still hasn't really gotten it going yet, and Shawnee Brown has been good, but it's pretty clear to me that Juwan wants to use him as like kind of like a 6-man role. Yeah, Franz Wagner is the difference maker, because not only is he a guy that can make threes and can make plays off the bounce, but like he had 5 blocks and a couple of steals today. Like he's become something of a defensive playmaker. And if you can combine all of those things with a 6'9" dude that can play off the bounce, that can shoot threes, that can make passes, and that can be kind of that defensive playmaker there, all of a sudden you're looking at a team that becomes scary good on that end of the floor. Like Isaiah Livers, Shawnee Brown's, Franz Wagner at the 2 through 4 can guard pretty much any group of like 3 players in the country, those 3 guys. And that's really tough, because we know they're going to be pretty good offensively.
I mean, we know they're going to be good offensively. What I was really impressed with was the defensive end and how alert they were defensively. Like, Northwestern is not a bad offensive team at all, and they stopped everything they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Like, Shawnee Brown was out there, like, they stopped everything. So I was very impressed with how good of a defensive team they were, how well they worked together, and how well they ran in transition. Because I mean, they got a ton of steals and they were just out. And once they rebounded the ball, they pushed the pace a ton. So it was, I like the pace they had getting into transition, and in half court they just took advantage of that 3-2. Like, it was nothing they could do. Mm-hmm. They couldn't guard a man to man, and then went to the 3-2, and it was just, it was a done deal. Wagner just stepped out there, knocked down threes. They had guys making jump shots left and right and attacking and finding the right places in the zone. They found what's his name, Dickinson, in the post. And usually you get in the post, some bigs, not all bigs, but some bigs, they rush the shot up because they know that the zone's collapsing on them. And Dickinson just took his time, stepped through, found layups, and just found the rim. And they're a very well coached team, and they got really good players. So I'm excited to see the rest of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I do think that it is important to point out that we might have seen Michigan play the 4 worst teams in the conference so far. They've beaten Nebraska, Penn State, Northwestern, and Maryland. So those might be the 4 bottom teams in the league. And that definitely needs to be taken into account when the top of the conference is as good as the top of this conference is. But at the very least, like, I think that they've proven that they're going to be in the mix throughout. Yeah, I just, when it comes to late February, we're going to be having that kind, like, at the very, like, worst case scenario, we're probably going to be like, Michigan's a game out. They're still in the mix. If they can beat Iowa here on the second to last game of the season, it's the kind of thing where maybe they actually have a chance to get away. But I mean, I've very, very impressed. I still think it's really going to come down to what their backcourt does, because again, like, look, Hunter Dickinson has been awesome, but he really had who's the best big guy he's played? Like this is who they played this season: Bowling Green, Oakland, Ball State, UCF, Toledo, Penn State, Nebraska, Maryland, Northwestern. He has not gone up against one of the great big they get Liam Robbins and Minnesota, who we just watched beat up on.
He led the game too.
Yeah, what do you have? 27, 14 of 5 blocks. Hunter Dickinson gets him Wednesday. He gets Wisconsin's front line, and then Liam Robinson again next week. Then they got Purdue and Trace Jackson Davis, and then they got Illinois. So there are a lot of very, very, very good big guys in the Big Ten, and Hunter Dickinson has not played against any of them yet. We also haven't seen their guards really go up against anybody, and to me, what Eli Brooks and Mike Smith can end up being in the backcourt, like that's where we find out what their ceiling is. Like we know they're good enough to be able to beat the bad teams and beat the teams that they're able to beat. But if those two are going to be able to be good enough for this team to win the conference, then they're going to have to go out and prove it. And we haven't seen them do that against a team that's good enough for that. Again, they get Marcus Carr on Wednesday, so we're going to find out sooner or later.
That's true. And they just dominated somebody. Who did they dominate today? I was just watching. I'm tripping.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, who had no Dwayne Washington?
Yeah.
Had no help tonight. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that's with Carr at half his average, I think.
Yeah, Carr didn't really play all that well. That's because Chris Holtman's whole game plan was to take him away.
Yeah, they doubled almost. You could say they doubled. It was like a hard hedge double team almost to get the ball out of his hands. And I mean, in my eyes, if you're playing against Minnesota and if you told me before the game that Carr is going to have half their points and the only person that was going to go out there and give you points in the first half was Liam, I think that Ohio State will come out there and do well. But EJ Liddell didn't play well. CJ didn't play well. Like it wasn't. No one came out to play. Like it was pretty one-sided after in the second half. Like it was close because they didn't score, but then Minnesota started scoring, and then it was.
Yeah, I think it's actually important though, because what today proved to me is that Minnesota can win games when you take away Marcus Carr. Like you can't just make your entire game plan be taking him away. And it's not just Liam Robbins. I'm looking at the box score right now: 27 points, 14 boards, 5 blocks, 4 assists, 2 steals. That right there is a pretty good day. He also hit a 3 and took 4 of them. So he can shoot. He can space the floor too. But to me, it was Gabe Kalschert, who has had a really bad start to the season, went for 13 and hit 3 threes. Booth Gotch had 10 points, hit a couple threes, and was really, really good in the first half. Jamal Mashburn Jr. came off the bench, 11 points, hit a couple threes. So what we saw today was that you cannot focus all of your energy on trying to take away Marcus Carr and still be able to beat Minnesota. And to me, that matters.
What you think of the offense, though? Ohio State's.
We know Minnesota can guard. Like it's not necessarily a surprise that they're able to do a little bit defensively. Yeah. So I wasn't shocked that happened. They are on the season. They're top 40 nationally in defensive effective field goal percentage. So it's not shocking to me that they were able to slow down Ohio State. Like I think anybody in the Big Ten can lock anybody down on any given night. It's just, one of those things. But I was very, very impressed by the fact that Ohio State threw everything they had at Marcus Carr and Minnesota. Like they didn't just win on a buzzer beater either.
Yeah.
They beat them by 20. So
they slow walked them to a 20 wall. So it was pretty impressive.
All right. So last thing before we move away from the Big Ten is, like you mentioned earlier, Iowa went into the rack and knocked off Rutgers. I guess it is possible to go into the rack and beat Rutgers. I guess it is possible to win in the rack, to walk in there and leave with a W. You were right there, Sean.
For years, I've seen people do it for years. After Hervé was on the left, people were doing it for years. Like it was a 10-year span. But once they got to the Big Ten, they've changed things. So that's good.
So what? Give me your takeaways from that game. I was, again, Jordan Bohannon made big shots. I know I've been hard on him on this podcast, but I want to see him. I think the sport's better when he's good. Just for 2 reasons. One, kid's got swagger out his ass, man. Did you see? Do you know what he did last year? Right at Ohio State.
No.
You know what he did? So Iowa and Iowa State, huge rivals. They played the Cyhawk game. Jordan Bohannon had never lost in Iowa State's arena, and it was supposed to be like his last game ever because it was the game before he shut things down after 10 games, so he could still get a medical redshirt if he wanted to come back because he had the double hip surgery. Yeah. So it was it was supposed to be the last game that he ever played for Iowa, was in Iowa State's building, and they won that game. So he takes off his shoes and he signs his shoes and left them on the foul line of the arena. Signed shoes after the win, which is just man, it's great. But it's like he's a troll. Like he's cocky like that, and he just raises Iowa's ceiling. So I'm very, very happy that he looks like he's playing a lot better right now.
Yeah, definitely. I was very surprised in a good way with Iowa because Rutgers is a physical team in a sense. You know, they play very physical half-court defense, and offensively they can, like, you know, they were trying to go directly at Luka Garza, and they would put the ball inside. They were trying to get him in foul trouble. So they played a very physical game, and it was great to see Iowa not back down. It was like it was good, and they stayed in the game, and they ended up pulling the game out in away at Rutgers. And Luka Garza was great, and Weiss can't play. Everybody played good, man. It was good to see. So
I was impressed that they got some big stops down the stretch.
Yeah,
I mean that's always our question with them, right? Like, are they going to be able to get stops when you need stops? And they did against Rutgers, against a team that does not lose in that building, that has really good, tough shot makers, that has great guards,
great athletes, the whole thing. Like, I mean, you would look at that. Honestly, before the game, I was sitting there, I just thought, like, all right, well, for you to beat this team, for you to beat Iowa, we need to run them out of the gym, and they're not going to guard you defensively. So you need to take advantage of those mismatches that you have, especially with Ron Harper Jr. there. And Rutgers did a good job, but I mean, they withstood the run. They guarded the ball toward the end down the stretch, and they made big shots, and they ended up winning the game. So shout out! I was surprised. Honestly, I was very shocked. So salute to the Hawkeyes. They deserve that very big win. So
yeah, it's weird. Luka finished with 25 and 10. No, I'm sorry. He finished with 25. He didn't have 10 boards.
10. I was about to say 8 or 9 or some shit. I can't remember.
Yeah, he finished with 25, and it felt like such a quiet night. It felt like Rutgers did a great job on him, which kind of tells you like just how good he is, because they did a really good job limiting his touches. Like Luka basically scored every time he touched the ball. He didn't miss a 2-pointer the whole game, but they did a very good job at limiting the number of times he was able to get touches. Like that was probably the least efficient Iowa's been offensively all season. I haven't looked at it on KenPom to know if that is actually true, but it felt like the least efficient performance they've had offensively all season long, and they won.
They limited his touches in the post, and not to mention they put the pressure on the guard so much that Luka had to step out and get the ball, and there was one possession where he had to step out to get the ball, and he dribbled to the right, spin back to the left, did a nice little reverse layup, got an and one, and it was like you needed the 7-footer to go, the 6'11" guy to go out there and do that, because the guards were having trouble. Young was making it very difficult for their guards, and it was a good game, man. I was very excited to watch.
Yeah, and that's not a good matchup for Iowa, and that was a very very impressive win.
Yeah,
and look, we're talking up Iowa right now. Rutgers, they're good, man. That is very good basketball team.
You see how fast Young got to around half court? I'm thinking it was like one dribble, got to like just enough in front of the half court line to get a pretty good shot off, and it was off, but I mean, they had a great chance to win the game still.
Do you know where Jacob Young started his college career?
No, please tell me.
At the University of Texas. Speaking of the University of Texas, they went into Fog Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday and handed Bill Self the worst loss he's ever had at home. Ever. Bill Self. Shaka Smart went into Bill Self's living room and kicked his ass.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
So I just talk to me about your initial impressions of that, because I have a lot of things that I want to say about Shaka and a lot of things that I want to say about coaching in general. But like there's not too many performances that I've seen that were more impressive than what we saw Shaka Smart and his Texas team do on Saturday.
What I would say about the game is I thought Texas did a really good job of imposing their athleticism over Kansas. Like they're very athletic, very big team. Their front line basically, I don't like to use the word dominated because they didn't dominate Kansas' front line, but at the same time, as a whole, their front line was better than Kansas' front line, their front court. And their guards obviously outplayed Kansas' guards. Defensively, and as far as the perimeter and interior, they locked everything up. And they didn't really even get going until the second half. And when they start making threes, like when Texas makes threes, these same athletes that they have, you have to chase them off of the three-point line and run at them all crazy to make sure they don't get uncontested shots. These are like one dribble baskets now. Like when Texas is shooting the ball the way they were, Greg Brown didn't even shoot the ball as good as he normally does. But like everyone else was just, it was tremendous. And it was, I mean, they were dominant, bro. From beginning, I wouldn't say beginning, but I say second half on, they just dominated the game. I think they had like 4 threes in a row. It was just like Kansas wasn't even.
They hit their first 6 in the second half. 6 in a row.
Kansas was like, it was almost as if they were blank after a couple of those threes went down. It was just like, all right, like let's walk us out of here. Like they were done.
Yeah, so Kansas shot 3 for 23 from 3, and Texas shot 12 for 26 from 3. Texas shot 49% from the floor overall. Kansas shot 30% from the floor overall. And I think so much of it was that Greg Brown, Jericho Sims, and Kai Jones were big enough and athletic enough that they made it so that David McCormick was completely ineffective. Like he didn't even play in the second half until
he didn't even start. Over. They started what, Lightfoot the second half?
Yeah, it started Lightfoot the second half. Because they're just so perimeter oriented that it created matchup problems on one end of the floor, and then they were big enough and athletic enough to be able to deal with him on the defensive end of the floor. And that's kind of like that's the ideal once you get there, right? When you have guys. Like we've talked about this with the Golden State Warriors, right? How they don't play small ball, they play skill ball. Yeah. And like I'm not gonna sit here and say that like this Texas team is the Golden State Warriors when they had KD and Steph and Draymond and Clay, but it's the same kind of thing where you have 6'11" dudes that can bang home threes and play on the perimeter and beat people off the dribble from 22 feet away from the rim, which is what Kai Jones and Greg Brown can do. Yeah, that also can protect the rim. That also can deal with a 7-foot, 250-pound David McCormick. That also, if they need to, can go out and guard like a Jalen Wilson or an Ochai Agbaji on the perimeter. So, like, when you have the guys that can do all of those things up front, like that right there, like that's the gin card, right? Like that right there is what every team at every level of basketball is looking for. And Texas got 2 of them, 3 of them too, if you want to throw Jericho Sims in there. So it's. I think that this was an example of Texas taking advantage of a matchup on a night where they couldn't miss from 3 and Kansas couldn't hit a shot. So like, I don't think Texas is 25 points better than Kansas is.
Nah, especially there. But but I feel like Kansas, like numerous teams in the Big 12, like when, I don't know what you would call their offense, but when they're running offense, if things aren't going well, for some reason, they just bury their heads down and just get to the one-on-one a little bit earlier than they should. And they start forcing shots, and they shot a lot of tough shots. And they were like, it was more like they were trying to make some extremely great play to like get a basket.
Yes.
Like, it didn't work out.
Because I mean, that's their main problem is like, they don't have a natural point guard, right? Like Marcus Garrett is a terrific player. Marcus Garrett is a terrific playmaker, but he ain't Matt Coleman. Matt Coleman is a point guard, right? Marcus Garrett is a playmaker, and it's 2 very different roles, and that's Kansas doesn't have that guy. And like when you have defenses that can kind of slow down, that can, all right, how do I want to phrase this? Like what Texas can do from a scouting reports perspective defensively, like they take you out of what you want to run. They don't let you run your stuff. They don't let you get to your spots. So you need guys that can go out there and that can kind of make plays. And Kansas does not have the guys that can go out there and make plays. That's why we saw Texas lose to Villanova. Because you know what Villanova has?
4 guys that can do it.
Everybody at every spot on the floor for Villanova can go out and make a play.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know. To me, that's the big picture takeaway there. But I also, so what is your take on Shaka Smart as a coach? Because for people listening that don't know, like Shaka Smart's been kind of on the quote unquote hot seat for the last probably like a year and a half, 2 years or so. The reason why he's still there at Texas right now is probably because he had such a big buyout. Like he didn't have a buyout in his contract. He had a fully guaranteed deal. So if they were going to ask him to leave and fire him, they were going to have to pay him every penny that they owed him. So that's probably, I don't want to say for sure that that's 100% the reason why, but I think it's
one of the reasons.
I think it's fair to say, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's fair to say in the coaching profession, it's kind of accepted that Shaka Smart is still at Texas because of that buyout. Is that fair?
That's part of the reason, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to pay the person all that money and them not be there. Like that.
Yep.
It's not good business.
So what's your take on him as a coach, on him as a person? Like, do you know him at all?
I do not know him personally. I've got a chance to watch his teams over the years. I'm not sure. Obviously, when I first got introduced to him, it was at VCU. And I'm really not sure how long he was at VCU, but afterwards I kind of like watched those VCU teams while he was there. I think the next like 2-3 years until he left. Like he's a great coach in my eyes. Like once again, you said this guy, he sets up his teams defensively and he keeps 4 guys that can attack. He spaces the floor out. Defensively, at least he's making sure his guys not up the line, but more or less making things difficult for the defense. He takes people out of things, and he keeps his teams active, and it makes it very difficult, especially offensively, when you see 3 or 4 guys that can get 10 points or more. Like he keeps teams like that, where it's a very well-rounded offensive arsenal. So I enjoy watching his teams. I was shocked that his teams weren't doing as well when he got to Texas, but like any coach anywhere, it takes time to you get put in a new not put. He decided to go. He goes to a new place. There's players there already that fit a certain system. He has to get those players adjusted to his system while kind of, using those players. A good coach doesn't just go in and go, all right, we're doing my stuff. They get in, they see what they have. They try to blend what these guys can do to what he can do and then try to mesh it. Like you can't just force guys to do things they've never done before. You show up and you have a coach that wants athletes and you have a non-athletic team. You can't just have these guys pressing. It just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So smart coaches try to find out what they can do and what his system is and try to find a nice median. And he did that, I would say, his first two years until he got his guys fully in. And then, you go through his scenario with playing a lot of people, which he loves to do, but it just didn't work out like that. I would say last year, you couldn't play 10 guys. So it just takes time for any coach. It doesn't matter who the coach is. A new coach comes in, it takes time for him to build his program up. Like think of Cal, think of like these guys had to like restart everything. Like they have great seasons and then all of a sudden they have losing seasons, but they give them that leash to like build the program up first, build their system up first before they decide to like boot them.
Yeah. So that's a great point that you made. And it's exactly something I want to touch on. I don't know if you know these stats I'm about to throw at you. Okay. Mike Krzyzewski, right? Got to Duke in 1980. He did not make it to the NCAA tournament until his 4th season at Duke. He did not win a game in the NCAA tournament until his 5th season at Duke, which is basically like the same situation that Shaka was in after his first 5 years, right? Yeah. In Coach K's 6th season, that was when they had Johnny Dawkins and Mark Allery and Jay Billis, and they went on that run to the national title game in 1986. And like they made 7 of the next 9 Final Fours. They won 2 titles in that stretch. They made it to 5 national championships. Like that's when like Duke became Duke, right? But it took 5 years for Coach K to even get to the point where like that was even something that you could consider. Coach Cal, when he was at Memphis, you mentioned this. In his first 5 seasons, he made 2 NCAA tournaments and 3 NITs. It wasn't until year 6 that he really got that thing going in Memphis. You look at Jay Wright. Jay Wright went to the NIT his first 3 seasons at Villanova, and he didn't make it out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament until year 5. Leonard Hamilton, This is his first 5 years. No postseason. NIT. No postseason. NIT.
Yeah.
Year 7 was the first year that he made it to the NCAA tournament. Got that thing going a little bit, made four straight tournaments. Then from 2013 to 2016, again, 4 straight NITs before he got that thing going again. Mick Cronin, no tournament. CBI, no tournament. NIT. It took him 5 years to get to the NCAA tournament. Then he made 9 straight NCAA tournaments with Cincinnati and was one of 6 coaches in the country. Right now, he's one of 6 coaches in the country that has been to the last 9 NCAA tournaments that have happened. So sometimes it takes a while for this thing to get going. And I'm not going to sit here and try to say that like Shaka Smart is going to end up being the next Jay Wright or the next Coach K or the next John Calipari, because like, if we're being frank, this dude has never won a regular season title. He's been a head coach for 11 years. He's never won a regular season title. Never won one in the Atlantic 10, has obviously never won one as a member of the Big 12. So I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you he's going to become the best coach in the history of college basketball, or one of the 3 best coaches in college basketball right now, like what Cal and K and Jay Wright are. I don't even know if this thing is going to be sustainable, man. Like, he's going to lose Greg Brown and Kai Jones to the NBA. Matt Coleman is gone. Jericho Sims is gone. I don't know if Andrew Jones is going to stay there.
But don't you think it's enough that other 6'11" guys?
Yeah. No, but that's all I was going to say.
See Greg Brown shooting threes and go, you know what? Shaka's going to let me do that. I think that's awesome for Shaka, at least.
And it's not just that, right? Like, we've seen Mo Bamba have success and go to the NBA. We've seen Jared Allen have success and go to the NBA. And like, the fact that Shaka has struggled is not, he hasn't been, there's things that I have criticized him for, like, from a coaching perspective, but there's also a lot of bad luck involved. Like, his first year, he went to the tournament, and then Isaiah Taylor, who was going to be an All-American if he came back for his senior season, went pro with a year of eligibility left. His second year, his leading scorer, Tevin Mack, transferred out of the program at the semester break. His third year, the leading scorer that season was Andrew Jones. 10 games into the season, the dude gets diagnosed with leukemia, right? Jared Allen was not a kid that was necessarily supposed to be a one and done. Comes in, ends up being a one and done. Jackson Hayes was a guy that was supposed to be in school for 2 or 3 years. Comes in, ends up being a top 10 pick, right? Yep. So it's not entirely his fault. Like, there's been some things, I don't want to say like, well, the Andrew Jones thing is just horrible luck, but like, for the most part, it's just it's hiccups that happen when you're building a program. All things that are understandable, all things that happen everywhere in college basketball. It's just they've kind of piled up on Shaka, and we're seeing it all come together for him. And like, look, I have gotten to know him a little bit. I don't think, I said this earlier today, I don't think that one of the criticisms he gets is like it's a media front. Like, I don't want to say like he's a fake, but like, he's not really like that. He just does it for the media. No, I don't buy that for a second. I think that everything that he says and the way that he treats his teams and his players is 100% who he is. I really like him as a coach, like him as a person. I'm happy that he's kind of getting this thing going.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it's overdue, and I think this is like I mean, like you said, you don't know. Greg Brown might not be there. Other guys might not be there next year. But I feel like what he's doing this year, it should speak volumes to Texas. And if they don't want him, then definitely another university. Because, I mean, he can put a program together. And, I mean, people still talk about VCU. And VCU is in the light it's in now because of what he's done. So,
yeah. All right. So, the next overreaction. Dontaie Allen changes everything for Kentucky, and now they're back to being a real threat in the SEC.
Dontaie Allen changes some things for Kentucky. I don't know if they're a threat in the SEC until they win like how many games they lost.
until they do more than beat Mississippi State. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, what I will say is the point you made the last time we talked, which I thought was dead on, was for Jackson, who didn't play well, and for Olivier Sarr to do well. They are going to need someone to be able to knock down some shots on the perimeter. They need to have somebody that's on the court that can shoot, that garners some respect, so that gives these guys some space if they do get the ball in the post to work, or even BJ Boston some space where he's driving that they can't leave the corner or leave wherever. They need a shooter out there. And having him be out there and knock those shots down will help their team, because they besides this game, they have been absolutely terrible from the 3-point line. They still did. Like, I watched the game. I ended up watching it after the game was over. I had to rewatched it, and they're still the same team. Like, they're still the same team. They turn the ball over. They shoot some very difficult shots.
that's a very diplomatic way of saying
that's
they take terrible shots.
They shoot some very difficult shots. But what I will say changed that game, and I don't know if you noticed it, besides Allen getting in the game and knocking down a shot when he with a minute left in the first half, what changed the game to me watching was how active they were on the floor and how enthusiastic they were for one another.
Yes.
That's one of the things I remember they did I remember one of the games before this game, I watched the bench and the game was close and guys are like sitting there slouched, just like on the sideline chilling. And then I watched this game and it's the first half and it's like pretty tight game. Someone makes a jump shot, the guys are standing up, they're having a good time, they're cheering. And then by the time Allen gets into rhythm in the second half, like, these guys are totally in it. Like, the activity was great from Askew and great from Jackson, blocking shots and getting steals and just hustling and doing the things they did for them to stay in the game and then push it to OT and win the game. But just seeing that enthusiasm, and that helped increase that activity, I thought, and that energy that they played with, and they ended up pulling out a game, which they could have easily lost. I think
the point you made is incredibly important, and it was what stood out to me more than anything else was they cut to BJ Boston on a bench a couple times. BJ Boston is a top 5 recruit, is a kid that played at the same high school as Bronny James and Zaire Wade at Sierra Canyon. He was anointed the next star at Kentucky, projected top 5 pick, as much hype as you could possibly have coming out of high school, right? And he comes in and he gets benched for some dude that he probably had never heard of when he got to campus in Dontaie Allen.
Mr. Basketball?
I bet that. Yeah, I mean, Dontaie Allen was a kid. Well, I'll get to a story in a minute. Anyway, so he ends up getting a bench for a kid and the kid comes in and hits 7 threes, has the game of his life. The kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, maybe BJ Boston's role is going to kind of get diminished a little bit. Maybe he's not going to get as many shots, blah, 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 whatever. And he's going nuts on the sideline, cheering them on, swinging the towel around, going crazy enough that his mask is flying all over the place. He was into it. And the how stark that contrast is from Cam Fletcher crying on the sideline because he's so frustrated he can't get minutes, and Terrence Clark sulking everywhere that to me really, really stood out as well. I think that is a very, very good point. As far as Dontaie Allen is concerned, one of my favorite stories in college basketball this year, because he's a kid from Kentucky, right? He was Mr. Basketball. He was he averaged 43 a game when he was in high school, and he was a borderline at best top 100. I think 24/7 had him 99th, and everyone else had him 100 something, whatever. Yeah. One of those guys that whatever. Whatever. And he tore his ACL? Maybe, I can't remember what the injury was, but he missed all of his what would have been his freshman season. Came back this year, can't get off the bench because Cal won't play him, even though he's known as a shooter and they badly need a shooter. Comes in a game like this, in a situation like this, 6-game losing streak, playing for his childhood favorite team.
I mean, he grew up in Kentucky. That's what it is.
Yeah, it comes in, hits 7 threes. Should have hit 8 if he could move his foot behind the line on that one that he banked in. Scored 23 points. That right there is living out the dream that every single kid in the state of Kentucky has growing up.
Yeah, bro.
That right there is living it out. And maybe he's got more hype than just some random kid that's a walk-on, and maybe he's a little bit more I don't even know what the word is, but the bottom line is this: he is a walk-on for that Kentucky program, like what it is right now. Like a borderline top 100 kid is a walk-on at Kentucky these days.
Oh my God, don't do that. No way. That's an overreaction right there. Top 100 player in the country can't be considered a walk-on in any college.
I want to see what your reaction would be to that.
I heard you say it the first time. I was like, wait a minute, what? I thought I misheard you. I was like, no way.
No, but I mean, you get what I'm saying. Like this kid comes off the bench out of nowhere, makes all these shots. Like just such an awesome story. I'm so happy for him that like he was able to get this going. Like if this changes a Kentucky season, like how cool of a story is that? Yeah, some local kid comes out of nowhere and changes everything, and
basically capitalizes on his opportunity, bro. That's awesome. Who wouldn't want to hear that story?
Yeah, good for him, man. All right, last thing on the SEC, last overreaction we got is Tennessee. Quite clearly is going to miss the NCAA tournament now. Alabama, obviously top 3 team in the country. So after I talked all that shit about how good Tennessee was, they went out and they lost. They lost at home to Alabama. So the
Mountaineers.
The funniest part about this, and you'll appreciate this, is there's a guy named Brian Hodgson who's an assistant on Alabama.
Yeah.
And like I know him pretty well, and like he knows that I was all into Tennessee this year. Like he's been just kind of texting me on the slide, being like, "Wait until we play him." I'm just telling you, wait until we play him, and then they end up playing and they win. Like 5 minutes after the buzzer, I got a FaceTime from the locker room from him. I was like, "Oh, come on, man!" I was so nervous answering that. Because I was like, oh man, is this going to be the whole team? Like, am I going to be
exactly
right? So, shout out to them, and that was a really good win. Give me all your takes on it because I got a couple.
I mean, what I will say, first of all, I disagree. Of course, that was a joke. I figured them not making the NCAA tournament. I remember I saw the text. I was like, what is he talking about? Did something happen? Did Tennessee withdraw from the NCAA tournament? I was so confused. No, but at the end of the day, we talked about this the last podcast as well. Mm-hmm. Tennessee, if they're making jump shots, especially if they're making threes, they're athletic enough. If you have to run them off the 3-point line to get to the basket and make things happen. But if you run them off the 3-point line and you stay with them, they're not as creative in scoring the basketball. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Alabama did that. They ran them off the line a bunch. And then adding the fact that Tennessee didn't make many threes. I mean, that was probably their worst shooting that I've seen so far. I mean, Muscovy didn't shoot the ball well. Bailey was 0 for 5 from 3. Like it was just an off 3-point night. And if you look at all their other stats, defensively, rebound, they were all fine. They were what they would normally do. They did what they normally do, but they didn't make shots. And if you can't make shots at home, and even if you can't make shots at home, you can't be Alabama at home. It's like, all right, cool. Like it was just a rough night for them.
You and Shimon both made this point on the podcast that we did after Tennessee beat Missouri. You said exactly that. Like Tennessee's awesome, but what happens on the night when a team is able to stay in front of them, is able to limit their points in transition? How are they going to score? Where do the points come from? Who breaks down somebody offensively? And we saw all of that come to fruition against Alabama. And like, that was also probably the best matchup that you could find, in the sense that the way that you want to beat Tennessee is like beat them down the floor, right? They force you to take a lot. Like their whole defense is kind of schemed around forcing people to take tough threes over the top of the defense. And Alabama was 10 for 20 from 3. They made them. They got down the floor quickly before Tennessee could set up. Like Alabama's whole, like their entire identity offensively is like, we want to get down the floor and we want to get a layup or a shot up within 7 seconds. Yeah. And I mean, that's how you got to beat them before they can set their defense. You got to make shots over the top of it. And then you got to force them to beat you one-on-one and make plays against the set defense yourself. And Alabama did all of those things. And that's all of those things well.
That's a great scouting report to have against a Tennessee team who like thrives in half-court defense, and they bait you either to shoot tough threes or drive to the basket to ease and let him clean up whatever comes his way. So if it is smart to, push the ball, get easy baskets in transition. And I mean, it worked for him, man. So shout out to Alabama. That was a good win against a good team. So.
They had a really good game plan. They executed it well. That was a perfect matchup, and they made shots. And when all of those things happen, you're going to win games on the road against good teams. And so credit to them, man. That was very, very impressive win, and the kind of thing that's going to look very good on Alabama's resume as we move forward to the NCAA tournament.
What do you think Tennessee is missing? I mean, obviously, to me, it's like they're missing somebody to like. I don't want to just throw names out there or anything like a Ron Harper Jr. type, because that's not easy to find somebody that could just flat out score, take over. But like Tennessee has everything you would want. Like if there's a guy that's like top 5 in the country in high school and he's like really, really good scorer, Tennessee kind of has everything you would want around somebody like that.
So what I think, I think what the difference was is I don't think necessarily, like, to your point, what they need is a guy that can go make something happen the same way that Kansas is missing a guy that can go make something happen. And I think that like the guy that they kind of thought might be that player this year is Jaden Springer. I don't think that it's Keon Johnson. Keon Johnson is more like a defensive stalwart that's like a slasher. Jaden Springer, I think, has a little bit of that in his game. But the thing is, like, I don't know if I can't remember if it was a knee or an ankle, but he hurt him. He only played 5 minutes and a half. And like, I don't want to say that, like, I'm not trying to make excuses for Tennessee.
Actually, didn't even notice he was out of the game.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, he hurt. So I can't remember what it was. I think it was a knee. And I don't think it was all that serious, but not having that kind of guy that could go get his own and go get a bucket when you need someone to go get a bucket was the problem. And I do think that that Jaden Springer can be that guy. And honestly, I don't think that it's what cost them against Alabama. Like they lost against Alabama because Alabama was a better team.
They were
on that day. So, but yeah, to me, that's what they're missing. All right, we're going to close with a fun little segment. I want to do biggest surprises, and we're going to do biggest disappointments. You got your players and your teams that are your biggest surprises?
Biggest surprise team, Texas beating the breaks off of Kansas at Kansas was surprising to me. If you won by like 2, it would have been like okay, but the blowout.
Hold on. Did you do just biggest surprise for this weekend or biggest surprise for the season to date so far?
Oh, I just did it for this weekend. I did some for this weekend.
Okay.
I did the players were for what I've seen so far.
Okay, perfect. Well, Texas to me is the biggest surprise team anyway. That's what I have written down too. Yeah,
Texas, like, in general, has been good this year, but just seeing them walk into Kansas and they what Kansas is like 200 and something and 15 in there. So that's it's rare to see them lose there and not in that fashion. So that was very surprising to see.
The other team that I have written down for biggest surprise is Clemson, because I think Clemson is maybe the best team in the ACC this year, and at least in the conversation. Because I mean, Duke's down, North Carolina's down, Virginia's down, Florida State's down. It feels like everybody's down. Like Clemson, they might be legit. They might be real. They might win that league this season, which would be maybe the craziest thing that we see in 2021 is Clemson going out and winning the ACC regular season.
No, I don't think that's going to be the case.
So for your players, who are your biggest surprises?
Greg Brown for the entirety of the season. I didn't think he would be what he is. Like, I just thought he was just going to be an athletic dude that can rebound and he can maybe. I didn't think he stretched the floor the way he didn't play as well this past game against Kansas. But did you see the going right step back pull up? Like, after he made that, they cut the Bill Self, and he's like, "What else can we do?" Like, for people that didn't see it, go check my Twitter feed. Like, I got the video on it. He drives left, puts it back between his legs on a step back, and then takes another step back, like going to his right. Like, that's just, I didn't know right-handed guys could do it. Like I don't think I've ever seen someone do that move that way. It was ridiculous. Yeah, I was caught off guard, and not to mention just like the way he's played. Like what was the last game? Did they play Oklahoma State?
He had go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, like, he had a really slow start to the year, but then he had like a 3-week stretch where he was just looked like the best player in the Big 12.
Yeah, and just you can see what his ceiling could possibly be. Like, well, I wouldn't say his ceiling, but what his potential could possibly be. Just that big, can actually put the ball on the floor, creates mismatches. Like, I was very surprised by him this season.
So the biggest surprises for me, I got 3 players written down. I got Marcus Carr, who we've talked about plenty.
Yeah.
I did not see him being like a first team All-American, which is what he is right now. Hunter Dickinson, I did not think that he was going to have this kind of an impact. We talked about him. And the last guy I have written down is Zach Fremantle at Xavier, who has been like their 5, a 3-point shooter, a guy that has really like allowed them to spread the floor the way that they want to spread the floor this year. And I mean, Xavier's, they're going to be up and down because they rely so much on 3-point shooting. But like the fact that Zach Fremantle is able to average like 16 or 17 a game the way that he has been, like, to me, kind of has been like an absolute difference maker for Xavier. And the reason why they're as good as they are is because they have him on the floor.
Shout out to Xavier. Granted,
so
I don't know if they're going to beat the Creighton group. Their Creighton group's pretty good.
Yeah.
They're good. Pretty good.
All right. So biggest disappointments for me was a lot easier to kind of pile them together. I have 6 written down. I'm going to let you go first.
No, I'll let you go first. I promise, because I guarantee 2 of mine are within yours.
So Kentucky, obviously, but like that one felt like too easy to pick.
Yeah.
I have Duke written down. I'm not going to go with them because I feel like right now Duke they haven't been as bad. Like their performances have not been as bad as what I kind of like think that they are in my head, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go with Virginia as the biggest disappointment. I thought this team was going to be like a top 5 team coming into the season. They can't guard the way we thought they could guard. They can't score the way we thought they were going to be able to score. Sam Hauser has not been the guy we thought he was going to be. Jay Huff is still just kind of like really tall and not much else. So
exactly.
For me, like Virginia is the most disappointing team.
Yeah. I was going to go with Kansas and Virginia. Not Kansas, I mean Kentucky and Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I mean, watching that first game, watching Virginia's first game, I was like, wow, this is going to be a very difficult team to beat.
Right?
And just seeing how they shared the ball and just watching the things they did. And then you go, like I would say 2 games later, you get a scare and then you see them lose to the Dons. I think it's a game later, excuse me. And it's like, all right, cool, they lose to San Francisco, but all right, that was just them sleepwalking and they had a rough go at it. Maybe it'll change. And man, it has not. Like, they are who I thought they were as that season decided to go on. And they haven't toughed it out much. When the pressure picks up, they kind of like wilt a little bit. So I'm hoping they can pick it up, but it is very disappointing so far. And Kentucky was more disappointing with I just didn't expect them to fold it in the inside as much as they did. I didn't think we see what we would see from Cal early with the player stuff. I didn't think we see guys attempting to rest themselves for I didn't think I'd see that. And I thought guys would play better than they did. And as you can see, like youth, it can be very difficult for young guards and young players. I don't want to blame all youth because some guys go out there at young ages and do amazing things, but that's just not the case right now for this Kentucky team.
So I had 3 others written down. I had Memphis written down because I legitimately thought they were like going to be a top 20 team this year, and that ended up being a bad prediction. Michigan State. Yeah, Penny's got a lot of work to do. I have Michigan State written down. Like it looks like it's me out there playing defense for them right now.
Can I take my words back? Yeah. Take everything I said and be like, you know what? See, because they made me eat my words early on. I thought they beat a decent Duke team, which obviously wasn't a decent Duke team. And some of the wins they got, I was like, oh, this could be I could be eating my words, but now it seems like they're taking a different turn.
I mean, hey, look, we all thought all of us were in the same boat. I don't think anybody thought that Michigan State would be this much of a mess at this point. The only other one I have written down is Arizona State, and honestly, like it shouldn't even be a disappointment at this point. Like Arizona State like they always got talent and they never whatever. They're always a mess.
Yeah, my guy, he puts up a lot of shots.
Remy Martin, but he does have the best name in college basketball.
Yes, he does. So you can never disrespect him.
If you got Remy Martin and Miller Kopp on the same team, then that's what we need. Remy Martin, Miller Kopp, and Boo Booey.
Were you not disappointed before we get out of here? Were you not disappointed in the way Texas Tech played, or were you more disappointed in the referee that gave the NBA call to Cade?
That's why.
Which one were you more disappointed?
I mean, that was just it was a horrible call. Like I'm trying not to go off on refs as much as I normally do, because like college refs are not very good. But like that was just absolutely atrocious. Like that, look, it's Cade Cunningham. He gets superstar calls. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah, unbelievable, right? Like what? How was that a foul?
How was it a foul? But I still feel like Texas Tech brought that on themselves. So.
Yeah, there's a conversation that we probably need to have at some point about whether or not Chris Beard has gotten himself overrated as a head coach, because like I feel like they've been a little bit disappointing for 2 years now. But that's a different podcast for a different day, and I need to hash out my thoughts on that a little bit more
before you just
before I open up that can of worms.
Well, everything you think.
Yeah. All right, Da'Sean. It's been fun, man. We will catch up with you guys again this week at some point. We'll find a day. Maybe we could do a couple days. Maybe we'll do a couple more locker room sessions. Anybody, if you're still listening, rate, review, subscribe to this podcast here, but also go download the Locker Room app, because we have a lot of fun doing post-game stuff on that app and have some good conversations. Oh, we got Cade Cunningham against West Virginia tomorrow night. Maybe we can do something afterwards after that game. So
maybe my Mountaineers can do something.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All right. Da'Sean, it's always a pleasure. We'll catch up with you guys later on this week.